Hello, welcome back to the PowerShell 10-year anniversary celebration event and party, including code golf, including great sessions, great content, lots of interviews, loads of cool stuff. Hope you've enjoyed the day. Keith and I are wrapping up the day. I'm talking about myself in the third person now. Matt McSpirit and I and Keith will be wrapping up the code golf very shortly. We're going to look at some of the questions, but before we do that, what are we going to do? We're going to wrap up some content, some info.
So really, all we're going to do is first say thank you to all the people who have contributed to this day. I've enjoyed it, and I got to see a lot of these videos ahead of time. But all the live sessions, all the things that we saw in studio, this is the first time anybody's seen them, and I really enjoyed it a lot. As you all who have been watching know that we had a number of cool things that you can do with PowerShell, and you can see them on screen, managing your garden sprinkler or your Tesla. And if you haven't caught that video, John did not get run over, I promise. PowerShell and the rest of things, provisioning a Minecraft server with PowerShell, and bless his heart, poor Ben, who just had a baby and he still came online to talk to us about controlling Azure with a cloud bot. The community interaction, the majority of those cool things that we showed you, and those almost all of those came from the community directly, and enthusiasts, but also the SQL Server commandlets and how well the product group for SQL and the community came together and did development to solve a real problem that customers had. Ed Wilson spent some time talking about the difference in communities, and the day in the life of a GitHub maintainer gives you an idea of what's important if you're going to be submitting to the PowerShell GitHub repo. PowerShell past and future. I had a lot of fun, in particular, dealing with the senior team remembering. I was in that room as they were recording it, and these guys have been together for a very, very long time working on the same product, which at Microsoft is really unusual. And the fact that they are still able to enjoy each other's company and have a really good time and have some great memory of things like how you had to use a physical object to control who was checking in at certain times. The monkey. And those kinds of things are things that add to the richness of this product, but also the community as well. And the future PowerShell directions builds on top of the things that we started with in terms of PowerShell then and now from the very beginning with Jeffrey and Kenneth.
Yeah, and everybody who's embraced PowerShell and has learned it through the multiple releases that it's gone through will know how fundamental it is now to so many organizations and so many people's roles. You know, it's a really valuable skill set to have on your CV. Right. Beyond just Windows and Windows Server administration now, it now broadens into Linux, it broadens into other workloads and technologies that run on both Microsoft and Linux platforms. It pushes you into the cloud, it keeps you on-prem, it's hybrid, it's just everywhere. So whilst today hasn't necessarily been about education and showing you how to do things necessarily, although we have done that in a variety of different topics around IoT and around SQL Server and so on, hopefully this has given you some insight into like the directions and how important PowerShell is, and if your colleagues are new to PowerShell, as we said earlier, some direction on how to move forward and how to learn. And there are some great resources that we're going to share shortly that you can get going with and that you can continue your kind of learning journey as you go forward as well.
Outstanding. Okay, so now, Matt, I didn't warn you about this, but I'm going to ask you to tell me what the time is that is showing on your computer right now.
The time, do you want it in PST?
PST is great.
PST, 3:35 p.m.
All right, as of right now, 3:35 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, the submissions are officially closed for Code Golf. We're going to go take a look at who's on first and how well they're doing. But one thing I wanted to show you is the winners who have survived all of these rounds of PowerShell Golf are going to be able to get this 3D printed PowerShell logo sent to them. As long as we can find a way of getting in touch with you, we will indeed do so and send that off to you.
What you can't tell from the photo is that's only 4 millimeters high.
We're also going to send you some stickers. So people, trust me, it's going to be nice, right?
No, it's a little bit bigger than that.
It is. It's actually about yay tall.
Yeah, there you go.
So let's go ahead and take a look at Code Golf and do a quick status update. Right now,
low score 19.
A low score of 19. So we're going to start with the first hole, and hole number 1.
Give that a refresh.
The refresh.
So remember, the hole number 1 was all about getting the security updates for the last 30 days, if I recall correctly. Yeah, so security updates installed on a local machine in the last 30 days, returning the result in the form of a specific, in square brackets, object or an array. So you've got a bit of flexibility there, and that's what it should look like. And it looks like the solution.
This is the best score available, and it's been out there for a little while.
So if you scroll down just to 100% confirm, I think 46 was the lowest.
46 does indeed still seem to be the lowest. Like. I think everybody else gave up after that. But you know, I'm pretty sure that this has Simon has squeezed every possible keystroke out of that sucker, and we will validate it in a little bit using Pester. But this is one of those, somebody obviously knows this PowerShell. Now let's go ahead and hole number 2, the low score is 42. Let's see where that resides. And that's still here. It is player PowerShell. You're going to have to get in touch with me to convince me that I send something to you. Because that looks like something Lee would write. And that's the LS still, somebody who understands how to use the aliasing. And one thing that we didn't tell anybody is, you know, they could have always written their own alias.
That was even shorter.
Yeah, just L.
There you go, around a 41.
However, you would have had to submit that code as well, so I don't think it would have worked.
No, wow.
So very, very good job there.
Fair play though. I mean, thinking on your feet all day to come up with that. It's not easy.
Somebody did very, very well. And last but not least, this one shows up with a low score of 19 and refreshing, and I think it's still that same
just a few hours ago, it was 24, 25. So somebody's got it down from 19 or 219. Oh, it's this person again.
Same person. Okay, let's see what this one compared
now, to the untrained eye, that doesn't look, it just looks like a lot of question marks. I think it's
okay, pass? That person's beyond me. I can see what they're doing, but they did a lot better job than I would have ever guessed. I'm going to have to take a look at this, and we're going to have to run that in Pester and validate that it does indeed do the job.
But what are you going to do if Mr. P0W3, or PowerShell, let's call him, or her, wins both? Are you going to go to the second place?
I'll send them 2 of those logos because they're going to say that they won Code Golf Contest number 1 and
number 2 and 3.
Numbers 2 and 3, so that they can put that on their trophy case forever because there's only one PowerShell 10 anniversary. That's it.
That's true. Yeah.
That's it. Now, before we go too far, I understand that there's still some questions out that haven't been answered. So let's go ahead and get those taken care of.
Okay, so first one up, but we've got a few more, and there still is a little bit of time. If you're watching live now, you want to answer or ask a few more questions, you don't have to answer them. We'll try and do that for you. channel9.msdn.com. You'll see us on the homepage, streaming live. You should see on there, fairly obvious, you should be able to ask a question of us, and I'll relay it to Keith, but you'll have to be quick. Anything in the next 10 minutes would probably be too late. So quick. Now, Chris Warwick, I think the OSS GitHub PowerShell is excellent. Nice work, always good to start with the positive. I find user voice, and I'm going to change the terminology here, less than excellent. Does GitHub make user voice redundant?
Right now, today, it certainly does not. GitHub and user voice are both used as sources of information for us to interact with the community, for people to tell us what's going on. And not a lot of people, well, I'll say this differently, not everyone has adopted GitHub so far. And so certainly for the next year or so, we will continue to use user voice. Beyond that, I can't say.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think for PowerShell as an example of something that has been open sourced, that the community can contribute to, and it is it is focused on developer and scripts and so on. Obviously, IT administrators using it, but it fits well with GitHub. But
Yes.
it also fits with user voice. Whereas a generic discussion on Windows Server and features, you know, I would like this in Active Directory, I would like this feature in Windows in the IIS web server, wouldn't necessarily gain anything from being in GitHub.
Right.
So user voice is very useful for that.
Indeed, and one of the advantages of both of these sources of feedback is people, if you see something that you like, vote it up. If it's important to you, vote it up, because then we can go, in particular when we see something with another product group. So let's say that the Xbox commandlets needed work. I don't know if there are any, by the way. But if the Xbox commandlets needed work and we had 1,500 votes for it, trust me, they'd listen. And we've had that kind of response already. And one of the sessions that we talked about earlier today, the SQL team came in and worked together with the community specifically because of the volume of feedback that they got when we started capturing it. So trust me, it works.
So I'm going to get home and I'm going to plug a keyboard into my Xbox and do get-achievement and then unlock all.
And if you can get 1,500 votes for that, I'm sure somebody will do something with
just
it.
make achievements unlockable through PowerShell. That'd be great.
All right.
For me, with limited time on my Xbox. So, a couple more questions. This is quite a long one from Johan again. Since the open source of PowerShell, will the PowerShell language have a governance process? So in his opinion, there are a few not so nice language designs in PowerShell, such as parameters to keyword, and in brackets for each, -parallel, -throttle limit. Also the syntax of fallback methods, .where and .for each, and some other issues. Will we be able to see proposed changes to the language before they're committed and released? A lot of kind of sub-questions in there, but hopefully you get the gist.
Well, the short form of that is, please do go out to look at github.com/PowerShell/PowerShell and look at the governance topic that's posted there. Indeed, we do have a governance board that is managing these things. We have an RFC, request for change process, that we will be following for larger changes, in particular changes that we would refer to as breaking changes where it worked one way in the past and is going to change its behavior in the future. This is exactly why we designed that governance process. So take a look at it, and if you have issues with the governance process, you raise an issue with the governance process directly out of GitHub.
Excellent. Not user voice.
No.
Okay, fair enough. So, question from Gareth Dean. Thanks for your question, Gareth, if you're still watching. Now that Windows Server 2016 is generally available, GA, when can we expect WMF 5.1 packages for Windows 7, 8.1, and 2012, and Windows Server 2012 R2?
So we're working on those right now, and for those of you who are familiar with Windows Management Framework, or WMF, what we do is we take the current version of PowerShell, WMI, WinRM, SIL, and we package them up and deliver them as a component that'll upgrade your previous versions of Windows and Windows Server. As with any upgrade code, it's sometimes touchy getting it right. I think we've worked through the last of the issues with that. If we are fortunate and we are able to complete this work, we will release it within the first early weeks of December. But if we can't release it early in December, we will hold off until January, because we don't want to release something too close to the US holidays and not have sufficient coverage if a question comes up. So if you don't see it early in December, look for it early in January.
Good stuff. So final question from Richard. I wonder if it's the same Richard we had earlier and the same Richard that we've been interacting with today. If it is, why are you still up so late?
Yeah,
you were ill, man. You should need to be going to bed. Bring back the MVP PowerShell status. Please, winky face.
The MVP PowerShell status. I have to ask what that is, because I've only been with the PowerShell 3 times, or 3 years rather. So if I have to say, ignorance is not bliss. I don't know what he's talking about.
I think what the guys were talking about before was saying that they are now cloud and data center management MVPs versus PowerShell MVPs. Yeah.
Specific PowerShell.
Yeah, I think they've lost that kind of specificity on PowerShell specifically. Even I know the question answers this one.
Thank you. I'm glad.
Versus cloud and data center management, which for a lot of people means a lot more, like Hyper-V, Windows Server generically, System Center, etc.
So we're going to have to pass that on to the MVP program. There have been some changes that were made recently that I was aware had happened, and I guess this is part of it. So I'll have to let them answer that question. Sorry, folks.
Well, perhaps it reflects, and again, it's just speculation, but perhaps it reflects that what you were saying before about PowerShell not necessarily being part of Windows Server or whatever now. It's now part of more of an automation story within Microsoft.
Yes.
And therefore, automation fits into cloud and data center management as a technology with OMS. And so maybe it's kind of being grouped in that way for simplification. But yeah, it's a shame to lose its specific nature.
Well, you can always continue to work with us and the community directly, but I do understand the question now, and we'll have to relay that one on to the MVP audience.
Cool. So we've got it is Richard. We just had another question. So he's still watching. Hopefully
get some sleep.
Yeah, and some medication, some cough medicine. So final one. Why the CLI guy? Why doesn't PowerShell have a means of enforcing mandatory variable declaration in brackets like option explicit for VB script?
Why don't we have a mechanism? That's a very good question. Should we have a mechanism? That's a really good thing for you to submit an RFC on, and the
a request for change.
Request for change in the PowerShell open source project. That seems like something that could be added, but I'm not on the governance board. If you remember, Joey and Jason spoke to us earlier. The governance board is announced, and you should know that they'll take a look at it and they'll consider it.
Cool, excellent. So no more questions for now. Thank you for all of your participation. It's been good to interact, and hopefully you've seen some value in getting your questions answered. It's jam-packed with sessions in terms of if you want to re-watch or if you want to recommend to colleagues and friends. All the content is going to be available on demand on channel9.msdn.com, and there'll be a blog on the PowerShell blog as well, so you'll be able to find easier links and routes through to all of the content.
Indeed. So I think really at this point, it's time to say thank you. There's a whole list of people that participated in this, and the community members that I wouldn't have been able to do this project at all without them. Really, the majority of this was driven by the community, and you can see that they've thrown themselves at this project and done a wonderful job. Thank you to every one of those people who are listed at the top. The PowerShell and OMS team members, and yes, I did kind of lump us all together, but we are indeed one team now. They've been, as always, very helpful, and the PowerShell 10-year historians were a lot of fun and were able to help me bring in some of the images that I used to embarrass, maybe is too harsh a word, but have some fun with Jeffrey and Kenneth in our first opening session. PowerShell management, certainly Jeffrey, Kenneth, Angel, and Jeremy Winter, and I forgot Angie. They have all been wonderfully supportive in this effort. The marketing crew, but have to say thank you to Matt.
You're welcome.
Never having done anything like this before, Matt was someone who made me feel like we would be able to pull this thing off.
Potentially.
Potentially. But
Pound sign, potentially.
And the Channel 9 team are an incredible, professional, capable group of people who we could not have done any of this without. So once again, thank you very, very much to them and for all of their hard work on this effort.
Yep.
Resources, well, these things will be posted. They will be part of the blog topic. We'll be adding them for you. Certainly you look at channel9.msdn.com. That's where you'll be able to see all of these videos in the next couple of days. They'll all go live. The PowerShell homepage, Microsoft.com/PowerShell. If you go there, you can find everything you need to know about PowerShell through some very quick links. A lot of the other elements, the community-driven sites, and there's a ton of them. And interacting with the PowerShell team, I've left those elements as well for you.
The community-driven sites as well. There was the Facebook page we talked about as well, Facebook.com/group/PowerShell, I think it was. There was a Spiceworks one as well. I can't remember the link off the top of my head, but if you search Spiceworks for PowerShell, I'm sure you'll find it. So there's different groups, different locations, all sorts of different ways to get resources and answers that you're looking for.
And we're going to be trying to consolidate as much of that as possible onto the Microsoft.com/PowerShell site in the next month or two.
Okay. So before we wrap up, it's worth checking the Twitters, what's been going on there. There's been loads of people tweeting and stuff, celebrating Eric Heres, I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly, at EJ Heres, celebrating #PowerShell 10 year properly by teaching PowerShell basics to 10 colleagues. That's cool stuff, isn't it? Always fun to do.
Good for you, Eric.
Always fun to do that, and #PowerShell. Some quite creative GIFs have appeared around using the PowerShell 10 year hashtag as well. There was some quite cool stuff going on with Fredrik Wall. I think it's in Sweden, PowerShell User Group Sweden. So they had cake. It's actually showing them doing the golf. So a collection of them working together on the PowerShell or the code golf specifically.
Now, is that cheating if you work to get? No, I guess not.
Only one submission.
Yeah,
they've got to share the
okay.
4mm.
They'll have to pass it around.
Yeah, everyone gets it for a week or so, or maybe depending on how much you submitted. Different people finding lots of the sessions very useful. Thanks for the responses to the questions as well.
I see a picture of Alexander Nikolic there. I understand that he was visiting with the user group there in Sweden during this event.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, lots of stuff. Yeah, and you can obviously check out all the responses and all the notes and stuff on #PowerShell 10 year.
And so at this point in time, ladies and gentlemen who have been watching this, I hope that it has been something that's fun for you, something that you've enjoyed and maybe gotten some value out of along the way. And in closing, about all I can say is happy birthday, PowerShell, and we will leave you with one last commercial. Thank you and good night.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear PowerShell. Happy birthday to you.
Das sieht gut aus, das ist Enterprise. Protokollierungsfeatures gibt es in der PowerShell. Und hier kann ich die Modulprotokollierung aktivieren.